Well, welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Jason.
Yes, sir.
Jason, tell me a little bit about Jason.
Jason's got a lot going on these days. Actually, it's pretty cool, man. I'm a little bit older. My name's Jason Peters. I'm actually about to turn 37, which feels really weird to say.
Wait, when's your birthday?
December 18th.
Well, that's closer than mine. Damn it. Okay.
When's yours?
31st.
Okay, for sure. Yeah, I don't know, dude. It's weird. I actually know a bunch of people. Like, I've got two coworkers, one who had a birthday last Monday, one who has a birthday tomorrow. An author that I work with, which we'll get into in a minute. He's on the 14th, I believe it's. Yeah, a lot of birthdays in December, man. I don't know. Maybe we just all attract each other's energy or something.
Or our parents got all freaky 9 months ago.
Wouldn't that be funny if actually all of our parents were at like the same orgy where we were all conceived? That would be pretty nuts.
I tried to talk to my parents. I was like, so what happened like this day 9 months ago? Like, what was the thing? Like, actually, you weren't supposed to be born today. And I'm like, wait, so today's not my legit birthday? And they're like, well, you were supposed to be born on Christmas, and then you ended up waiting a week to come out like an asshole, charging up our hospital bill. And I was like, oh, that's terrible. And I was like, so when was I supposed to be born? He goes, you're supposed to be born on Christmas. But the doctor was like, I have a New Year's Eve party I need to get to, so let's rip this thing out of here.
That's hilarious, man. Awesome. Yeah, and they're like, and now we got to get you birthday and Christmas presents. We had a whole plan where we're going to fold it in on the same day. And screwed it all up, son.
I would make sure that shit was separate, sir. Because let me tell you, even if it's like 6 days after, or because my brother's a couple days before, so it's like that. Yeah. December, you just got to save all your money. There's no Easter. Just save it till Christmas and then unload in that whole month of December of just nothing but presents.
100%. Yeah. And we, being, I think, so my birthday is exactly 1 week before Christmas. And yeah, the whole birthday and Christmas present thing comes up a lot. So, but anyways, so let me tell you about a little bit about what I've got going on these days. So once again, Jason Peters, about to turn 37. So I'm doing a few things these days. I've got, so for the last 5 years, I've actually been managing a indie publishing house where we focus on just publishing fiction. And we're a small team. I've got, pretty much 2 authors that I'm working with regularly in terms of their novels. And then I've got a bunch of authors that I'm working with that are submitting short stories, and we're getting an anthology going. So that's been a lot of fun for the last few years. Indie publishing is crazy. We try to do not like adult fiction, but like fiction for adults, and horror stuff. Our kind of niche is that we publish what we like to call strange stories, right? And it stops short for anybody that's listening or watching. There's a genre known as bizarro, where it's basically just like as much craziness as you can throw on a page, and it can get really graphic and extreme, and it's got some bonkers ideas. We kind of stop a little bit short of that. We kind of embrace a lot of the uniqueness in terms of the types of stories that we're telling, weird sci-fi, horror, zany kind of stuff a little bit. But it doesn't get too extreme, so just to set proper expectations, if you are familiar with bizarro and that's a little much for you, it's probably our work is going to appeal to you. The company's name is Aberrant Literature, and there's a couple authors right now that we have books coming out or just released. So first is this dude named Ashton McCulley, really, really talented author. Guy writes adventure stories, and he's created this world called the Nick Ventnor world. And Nick Ventnor is basically sort of like a hard-charging, imagine like Indiana Jones if he was like a sarcastic alcoholic bastard. And that's this guy, Nick Ventnor, and he goes on these crazy adventures. Ashton wrote this book, Whiteout, that's awesome. It's basically about this explorer monster hunter, Nick Ventnor, who is tasked with finding the lost gates of Shangri-La at the top of the mountains of the Himalayas. And he goes to check it out, and it turns out that on the mountain's base, there's this town that's actually being attacked and threatened by a Yeti. So this guy's got to basically fight a Yeti up to the top of the mountains of the Himalayas to get to supposedly the lost gates of Shangri-La, and there's a reveal there. And it's a lot of fun, dude. Like I said, if you like that kind of Indiana Jones, pulpy, adventure, sarcastic one-liners along the way, really, really great. And then he just released the sequel to that too, called Downpour.
So when they're writing stories like this, do you ever get questions in your head, like how closely did you do any research on the Yeti, for instance? Like for me, I find like when you're writing about something, you're writing about Bigfoot, if you're writing about any type of whatever series that you can take bits and pieces from and turn into your own little story, obviously, but finding the research for it, man, like the Yeti, the stories that come from the Yeti are so fucking fascinating because people are like,
Yeah.
I want to go find Loch Ness. I want to meet a Yeti because there are just countless stories and lore of just Yetis coming down to town and literally kidnapping your first daughter. And then also, instead of like what Bigfoot captures you in the woods, a Yeti grabs a boulder and has known to been throwing boulders at Sherpas, tossing them off the mountainside. Imagine you're just backpacking through the lovely Tibetan mountains and a fucking giant boulder hits you and you fly off.
Right. Yeah, man. Yeah. So, in terms of that, you actually would probably really dig. So, the author, again, his name is Ashton McCauley, and he's really big into like folklore, and specifically, his thing is like cryptid folklore. So, he loves cryptids, and he has basically been, which for anybody listening or watching who doesn't know what cryptids are basically like those folklore-driven animals and mythological creatures, really more so that we hear talked about a lot in sort of like legend fashion. So it can be something like the Yeti or the Bigfoot that we're talking about now. It can be the Chupacabra legend
You're a
from
freaking great
America.
educator. Usually I just gloss over, like, I'm like, people can Google this shit. I'm like, because I go off
Yeah.
on some government projects and stuff, and people are like, what is he talking about? Like, I can't explain the whole thing, or we're going to be here for days.
Yeah, dude. That's the sales in me coming out, dude. I pay the bills with an unsexy sales job, and so I'm used to having to kind of like break down some of, well, they're not advanced concepts, but again, that's not even sexy. We're not even going to go there. We're going to stay in this lane over here with the books and the movies and everything else I got going on. But yeah, but I was going to say, you would actually really enjoy, the author has a podcast, actually, which I do too. We'll get into that in a minute. And it's called Cryptids Decrypted. And every episode, he and his co-host, this dude, John, who's super cool too, or Tyler, one or the other, I think they swap in. Yeah, they actually look at like a different unique cryptid. And so one, it might be like the Loveland Lake frog thing, whatever. I'm not super into cryptids the way he is. He knows, he has like the cataloged knowledge and knows all of that stuff. I pretty much just pick up what I listen to on his show, which is awesome. Again, Cryptids Decrypted. Go ahead and check that out if you're into the whole cryptid community. So yeah. So and he reuses everything just like anything else, right? There's so much content online that you can find, whether it's, Wikipedia or some of these just, especially with stuff like this, you've got, these intrepid explorer types where they just kind of, YouTube themselves going through the forest, it's just some dude named John or something, right? They're not a funded enterprise or anything like that. And, there's a lot of, I'm sure, not everything does need to be probably taken with a grain of salt to a degree. I think there's certain legends that have a little bit more,
That's the
are
fun
a little
of
bit
it.
more grounded in reality than others. But yeah,
That's what people don't really ever understand about something is when someone says flat earth or someone says this. I've talked to every single person that it can think of. I've talked to a Scientologist. I've talked to so many people. It's just the fact of like, I don't ever sit there and say you're wrong. I'm open to that person's perspective because sometimes you can make, I've made a conspiracy theory and convinced myself of it, where halfway through I was like, hang on a second, this isn't a real thing. I just made that up 2 seconds ago. You have to like kind of catch yourself, but it's fun to
yeah,
believe. It's fun to analyze things and wonder how that person thought this. How did they create the Yeti? They obviously either saw something that looked like that or something like that. It goes all even deeper into kind of what you do too with your film podcast, for instance. You're analyzing a lot of stuff that what makes a film a good film in your eyes, or, a critic, I would say. The whole factor of every movie I've ever said that is good, people shit on constantly. And I always use this bad movie reference of like, if that can be a movie, I mean, that can easily be a movie because Bird Box was a movie. And I said that to the guy whose best friend wrote Bird Box, and he
oh wow.
stopped me halfway. And I was like, well, I guess I can't use that reference, but Sandra Bullock fucking ruined it. It seems like it has a good
Oh
plot line to it. A lot
yeah.
of good movies I see, there can be a fault of either too less budget, or maybe it's an acting thing, maybe it's the way it was shot, maybe it was the scenery, maybe it was all these things. One of my all-time favorite movies is Lady in the Water.
Okay.
but it gets shit on just because M. Night Shyamalan's directing style. But if you analyze what that film is, Paul Giamatti is a fucking fabulous actor on the fact of
100%.
that stutter he incorporated in. Try just trying to stutter right now. Just like trying to do that is difficult in itself, but keeping a character that can also teach you a bit of a myth and also still wind everything all back together into the beginning is something I enjoy. It's, to me, that's better than seeing fuck, what's a popular movie people love? The new Spider-Man. Fuck that.
So yeah, dude. So we're on to movies right now. What kind of movies do you like to generally, like, aside from Lady in the Water? Like, do you have a specific genre, or just certain movies appeal to you for whatever reason?
If you would ask me that question 10 years ago, I would have been like, I want comedy movies and I want action movies. But as I've kind of, I guess, progressed in life, I know I'm still kind of young, but I've tried my best to understand more perspectives of things that I haven't experienced yet, such as a parent's perspective. I like all fucking movies. I mean, a movie, I cried, I think, and I'm not a sensitive guy like that, but I teared up on the fact of like The Mist. Like,
Oh yeah.
the ending where he shoots his
Yeah.
whole family and then he realizes, like, oh my God, it's not the monsters, it's the military. I'm like, dude, imagine that, losing everything you cherish and then finding out that what you thought it was, it wasn't.
Yeah. And I really like when, movies are able to take what some might consider sort of lower fare a little bit, and elevate it with, some emotion like that. Because, a lot of times it's like, because first of all, I like all movies, dude. Like, I don't discriminate. I like
New Spider-Man, though?
everything. I'm not a huge Marvel guy. That's
I'm
the
not a
one thing
Tom
I
Holland
will
fan.
say. I do like Tom Holland, actually.
I've been called the working man's Tom Holland because of my looks.
I could see that a little bit. Yeah. No, you don't have he's got like that innocent, cherub sort of face. Like, I don't know, dude. You look like you get into some shit or something like that. That's all I'm saying.
I'm about to. So for the audience listening, I'm going to show him a little picture that someone had taken of my face and mashed it up next to Tom Holland's, and let's see what his reaction would be.
Okay. Yeah. All right. There
I
you
roll
go.
with it
Proofs in the
now. I'm
pudding.
hoping it hits out there
Yeah.
to the point where Tom Holland comes onto the podcast and I can verbally assault the shit out of him.
That would be.
It's Toby, man. Toby is my Spider-Man only because, but then I started listening to a podcast recently, and this is why I'm like, don't meet your heroes, because I've started listening to like a lot of like unnamed people in the industries when it comes to like comedians. Like I've heard the guy who plays for the band Steel Panther.
Yeah.
He says Prince is a really bad guy, like destroyed all their instruments before going on stage, but people love Prince.
Oh, wow.
And then it's like
Yeah.
coming out with scandals. And then someone said that Tobey Maguire was an asshole. And I was like, no, like, man, like it's so weird to see that on stage. And I always use the reference of like, I think like a lot of people gave Christian Bale a lot of crap for freaking out at a prop guy who set up a table wrong or something and didn't have a certain food item on there. And I'm like, because he's so passionate about his craft. This man loses 60, 50 pounds to play a role, then gains it back. Like the amount of mind fuckery that is intense. So if somebody doesn't have chips or something on a prop table, of course he's going to be upset. He's going out like be above and beyond to be able to play these roles, and someone doesn't do their job properly by just getting a thing of water out. Like,
yeah, I don't know, dude. I mean, something like that. I do think there's, an element of like, personal conduct in terms of making sure that, because look, dude, I mean, I've had jobs for, as long since I was a teenager, and I worked a lot of, corporate gigs and small business gigs, and again, a bunch of unsexy stuff in the business world to pay the bills, sales, purchasing, stuff like that. And a large part of it is you want to make sure that you're setting up an environment where not only you can thrive, but others can thrive as well. And I don't necessarily, I think the issue with that is it presupposes that one person does hold more value than another. And I understand that actors get paid $20 million, and there's a lot of, as you say, mental gymnastics that goes along with that. And, especially if you're talking about, some of these more, how to put it, controversial roles, when people play serial killers or child molesters, or they have to inhabit these, very sort of ugly mentalities. And, you're challenged as an actor, and this is what I think is really interesting. is that, you know, you have to inhabit a mindset where you think like that so that you can capture that performance. And so again, you know, it's one thing when you're playing, you know, the hero and that's gonna, you know, just virtuous and saves the day, and everyone's gonna be like, wow, Chris Evans, that guy's amazing. You know, he's so good and virtuous, blah, blah, blah. He could be doing shit behind closed doors that we don't know about. I'm not saying he does. I'm just saying we have no idea,
He's
right?
the Human Torch.
And so often, you know, it's that whole phenomena where people associate the characters with the actors, you know, right? Where
Yeah.
they play the bad guy that, you know, again, was, you know, went to jail for touching kids or something, and then they see him walking down the street and they're like, hey, there's the guy that touches kids, let's beat him up. And it's like, nah, bro, like, he's got a family, he's a
This
really nice guy, he just
this
played a role because he's an actor, that's what they do.
this just happened to Shia LaBeouf. I watched a whole fucking hour and a half documentary about Shia LaBeouf's downfall and all this stuff of how he got insanely like upset, drugs, all these horrible things. And then when he made Peanut Butter Falcon, that kid that was mentally challenged completely changed his life. He was spending a lot of time with him and bonding with him. And it was really like this experience that turned him 100% around, where his really close friend, Megan Fox, was like, saw a new Shia LaBeouf. It was him again. It was the original. It wasn't the one that we lost. And then next thing you know, now in the news, he's getting Me Too'd. And I'm like, well, fuck. Like, why does everybody's chipping at somebody above them? And I'm like, I
Yeah.
understand the fame aspect of things, but like, it's so hard, especially in the industry too. Imagine the fact of like, you can relate it to people that are body dysmorphic or weightlifters, for instance. There's a big mental health issue with people that lift weights,
Mhm.
especially like severe bodybuilders like Arnold and stuff like that. The reason why is because imagine if I gave you a movie deal, and next thing you know, everyone is literally like at your doorstep. TMZ's trying to get a bad shot of you, and just people are just taking your photo everywhere you go, where you can't even go out to eat. Like, you're Leo DiCaprio famous. And then
Yeah.
imagine that all gets taken away. You're gonna fucking lose your shit. And all that power in the first place is so corrupting to your head. It's like
Sure.
the Bill, even though people hate Bill Gates right now, it's a fucking mess. Um, the Bill Gates mentality I like to live by is the fact of, even though you have money doesn't mean you need to spend it. Like, saving your
Sure.
money, like, it's still hard for me, even though I have money in the bank, to spend $5 on a shirt or something, because you never know when you might need that for something else. And it's like, once you start realizing, if I increased your budget from $200 a week at your job to $800 a week at your job, you're going to be a lot less frugal. Instead of maybe spending $5 a day or something, you're going to be spending like $50 a day, because you have that extra room to do so.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, definitely, man.
It's like the
Hey,
movie Avatar. You get $40 billion to make a fucking movie. You're going to put aliens all over the place, and you can take however long you want to be able to film the next one.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, James Cameron is kind of like, he's a really unique individual. You know, it's one of those people where it's like, you know, I have a love-hate relationship with him, right? It's
How do you
like,
wait? What's the hate part?
okay, so here's the thing about James Cameron. Okay, he so okay, let's back up. Uh, when you talk about writers and you talk about writers being good or bad, there's a couple different elements to writing. Okay, on the one hand, you've got the story ideas. Okay, this would be like your setups, right? Like, okay, you know, it's going to take place in space and there's going to be these crazy cat people and blah blah blah. That's all cool, right? So what I would say is that he's an imaginative writer, and I appreciate the concepts and the world building that he does, but the guy cannot write dialogue for the fucking life of him, and it kills me, bro.
I
It
agree.
kills me. Like, it's like, if he could just be cool being like, I'm gonna write this draft and then I'm gonna bring in, I don't know, Tarantino or someone who's good with dialogue to handle my dialogue, I feel like I could respect his scripts a lot more. But like, you know, so again, like that soldier, you know, the main
Well, it's
antagonist in Avatar, and it's like, dude, that's out of screenwriting 101. Like, hey
it's
there, rah, 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 like chopping
it's
cigars and shit, dude. Like,
it's the creative mentality. It's so hard when you create something to let somebody else adjust it. It's like, fuck, you're messing with my baby. That's kind of the
I get it,
mentality
dude.
of it. But it makes sense. I agree with you. I mean, Quentin Tarantino is a fucking amazing director. I don't
Yeah, I love
think
it.
all his movies have, like, it's like the Coen brothers. When I saw The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, So
Mm,
my interpretation of this movie, and this is probably one of my favorites because The Big Lebowski is my all-time favorite movie.
excellent, right up there for
Well,
sure.
when I was watching Buster of Ballard's, here we go.
Abba,
This
dabba, dabba, dabba,
that yeah, exactly. The
dabba.
Ballad of Buster Scruggs. I watched it when it was first on Netflix, but it was late at night, and I fell asleep at the ending
Yeah.
of each bit, and would wake up in the middle of the next one. So I was like, "Am I watching a different movie? If it's like Netflix series?" So it was like a weird, like 9-hour movie to me. But when you watch those and dissect them, they all have like a key theme to them, or a bit of like a foreshadow that leads to like a bigger kind of overall event. And that's what I like to see. I like a movie that's not just pointless stuff, like I enjoy the old Star Wars, not really the new ones. But
Yeah.
the weird part about Avatar, why I use that example is because it's one of the only movies that has really caused a mass depression in people, basically showing you a reflection of what Earth used to be before we came and fucked it up. And it shows what man has always done and messed it up. And I was thinking, like, wouldn't Star Wars be the same concept? But there hasn't been really a link to depression, maybe with the new ones coming out. But the fact of like, there really hasn't been an overall look or reflection into oneself as much as Avatar did, which my opinion for Avatar after I read that article and stuff that came out about it fucking skyrocketed because I was like, the ability to make someone impacted from something that you create to me is everything. I
Sure.
want to be on the edge of my seat. When I watch Knives Out, I'm thinking Clue the whole fucking time. I'm like, where's
Yeah.
Colonel Mustard coming out with the sword in the library? But it's that type of thing. And it's like when you find a template that works, or you find a cast that works, or you find that vibe, when you can look at all the actors and see them all vibing in a room, it's why I'm such a fan of Adam Sandler. But people
Mhm.
shit on his movies because he always uses the same people all the time. Okay, if you make an amazing movie and you like that cast and you all vibe together, why wouldn't you do it again? Why wouldn't you keep trying to
Yeah.
create movies with the same cast, knowing that that team works? These people get along.
Yeah. You know what's funny about that, dude? So I actually say this about a lot of films, which is that I don't think I think that a lot of the, quote unquote reasons that we as people like or dislike things, I think that a lot of that is sort of like, how to put it, post judgment rationalization or something, right? Here's what I mean by that. When we like something, we are incredibly forgiving as audience members, right? This can be movies, books, music, whatever, right? Um, on the contrary, when we dislike something, we get super nitpicky, right? And so I think that a lot of times when people are like, oh, like you're talking about, I don't like this Adam Sandler movie because it has the same people. Nah, that's not it, dude. I think that on a base level, there's something that you as an audience member didn't respond to, whether it's the comedy stylings, whatever it is, right? At the end of the day, I think that what's going on is this comedy that you were expecting to laugh did not make you laugh, therefore failing to meet your expectations. And I don't know how much you know about, just like the brain and as it relates to like having to make sense of everything, regardless of whether it's true or not, to move forward. And I think that's kind of what happens is we look at something and maybe we're not students of film, right? We just know we didn't like this and we can't pinpoint it, but our brain's like, hey homie, we need to come up with a reason why we didn't like this. We can't just not like it because we didn't like it, right? So give me something that I can hang my hat on, and then once I know why we didn't like it, cool, we can move forward. And so that's when we start going, oh well, these actors were here, or the lighting was off. Like, I've seen some of the shittiest B movies, I'm sure we all have, right? Like, whether they're comedies, horrors, late night, erotic, whatever it is, right? Like, a lot of the more heavy genre stuff, whatever that genre is for you, it doesn't come with a lot of production value. And so when I watch, $100 million movie, I'm going to expect it to look like $100 million movie, and if it doesn't, I'm going to hold that against the film. But if I watch an indie film that was made for two wooden nickels and a used condom, I'm not going to expect it to look like it was shot by Caleb Deschanel, dude. Like, I'm just going to expect it to be functional enough. And actually, if it can even hit like 6.5 to 7, I'm like, good for them. They had dick to work with, and they made it look awesome. And they were smart about, hey, here's what we can do, here's what we can't do. Let's not try to get night shots with our crappy little, $600 handheld camcorder.
It's
So
hard to get into those movies too, unless you have the mindset to watch those. Like all the people that do horror podcasts or movie podcasts, when you set out to watch an indie film from like the 80s or the 90s or something that's old school, and it wasn't popular, it wasn't like a Terminator movie or something. It was something that was shot with kind of a shaky camera. You already know what the quality is going to be, so you're not even judging it. But when someone sees that and they don't know about the quality of it, they immediately get turns off in like the first minute. It's like, oh, this fucking camera shit. Like you're not into it. It needs to be a Michael Bay style, filmography. And I'm like, that if you go in expecting that a movie's going to be like that, like I'm not a car guy. I freaking hate it. But my buddy is a Fast and Furious fiend. He loves every single one. I'm just like, Jesus, another Fast and Furious. And he's like, I'm buying your ticket. So what are you complaining about? I'm like, all right. And I just go, but I end up liking the movie. But I'm
yeah,
not going to watch it again. I'm not going to
yeah,
see it and buy it on DVD like he does. There's so many good things, even though I'm not a car guy. I'll enjoy a car movie if it's done right. If it's good actors in it, if there's good quality in it. I mean, I'll even watch a crappy one if it just has a good story. I like seeing an underdog story. My range is they've learned to expand back in the day when all I wanted to watch was like fucking Ghost Rider or National Treasure. I was on like a Nicolas Cage binge for a long time.
yeah. That's awesome, dude. That's really funny. Nick Cage is one of those actors, dude. He's either great or horrible, and there's no in between. And I mean, I kind of like actors like that because I think that it's better than the middle of the road actor. So me and my buddy actually talk about this. We actually, as you know, we connected because I have the podcast Esoterica Cinema that I do. And
It's
so my
Latin for
co-host
movie.
it's Latin for weird small movie that nobody's seen or heard of and doesn't really care that you're talking about it. We're basically like, so me and my buddy Ryan, dude, like I said, he's my co-host. We actually went to film school back in the day. That's actually how we connected. I live out here in Los Angeles. He's over in Tampa, Florida. He came out here to Los Angeles and we went to film school with a program that worked out of the backlot of Universal Studios, actually. So it was super sweet because we've actually been on like, the Back to the Future set that burned down and like the Western set that, like Tarantino used in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Like I used that same exact building that he used for like a short film. Like, so that was crazy, man. That was super cool. So we bonded over like a mutual love of film. He ended up shooting my student film. I don't think he trusted me at the time, so he didn't have me do anything on his film, anything noteworthy anyways. But either way, yes. Yeah, so, and like one of the things that we talk about on the show, oh shit, dude, you know what, I totally forgot what I was going to say.
Welcome to the show of Out of the Blank podcast. It's kind of how it rolls. But have you ever seen the movie Dogma?
Yeah, dude, that was one of the big ones from like high school that was sort of like controversial at the time, which
I,
was
s-
super funny that
I
it was
saw it when I was
controversial.
15 and I didn't know
Really?
that wasn't a movie you should see. Actually, no, I think I was 14. I was like, Mom, you ever seen the movie Dogma? She's like, you watched Dogma? I was like, yeah. I was like, it was really cool. Good play on religion. She's like, that's not a movie that you should be watching. I'm like, Looney Tunes was on a commercial break, so I decided to flip over to Comedy Central, and that happened to be playing.
Yeah, it's super funny, dude, because all these people were like, oh, it's anti-religion and this and that, dude. And I remember even Kevin Smith said the same thing. It's like, that this is a movie that features a scene with a shit monster, right? This is a movie that has a scene where a creature makes itself out of literal human feces in a toilet and comes up and terrorizes people. And so, like, if you're going to hold this film under the same microscope as like a Last Temptation of Christ, that might not be the way that you want to approach this. I do remember where I was going, by the way. So the thing I was going to say is that, so me and my buddy Ryan, we do this podcast, and we met in film school. So right before that in high school was like when we started down this road, right? So like these types of films that you're talking about, this is when we start getting into Kubrick. This is where we start getting into Kurosawa, all these sort of very like prolific, and start learning about art films, crazy filmmakers like Lynch and Jodorowsky and all these people, right? So, and we're both, in our late 30s, early 40s at this point right now. And so, what I would say is that our podcast, the thing about it is we're some dudes that are pretty far along on our cinematic journey, right? So everyone, when they start out, usually it's like sometime between, let's say, anytime between 12 and 16 or 17, right? Where you like fall in love with film. And that's where you start finding these films that I'm talking about. 20 years later, like you're into some weird shit, dude, like you've already gone down the main path and then you've split down like the sub tendrils and now you're into the like sub tendrils. So like our show is really kind of not designed for, we don't look at big blockbusters that everybody has seen. So it's not super accessible in that respect. We're not looking at Blade Runner. We're not looking at Saving Private Ryan. We're not looking at Braveheart. We're not looking at Citizen Kane. We're not looking at the best pictures of all time.
Jesus, you named
We're actually
all those movies you just named. I've probably seen a piece of one of those and then none of the rest. I think I've seen a clip from Braveheart, but all the other ones, I'm so like, when it comes to seeing like a movie that everybody loves, I usually end up not enjoying it as much as everybody. I really love the ones that everyone hates. Like Green Lantern's my fucking favorite. But everyone trashes that movie. I'm like, I don't care. It's my only.
I haven't seen that one, dude. I can't say that I've seen that one, but mostly because of if reputation. So, but I do get that, dude. I do. There's a lot of shit that I like that a lot of people don't like. But so what I would say is that like, if you're the type of person where it's like you've seen a lot of stuff and you're kind of looking for someone or for something that can like bring to your attention some shit that you never would have possibly even seen, like that's who our show is for, So it's for the people that are way into film that, again, don't want to see the films, the Scorsese films that everyone's seen because everyone's seen, Goodfellas and everyone's, seen Casino. It's like, oh yeah, like how many people have seen the little animated film that he did, Hugo or whatever it was, right? Like people don't even know. Like, wait, Scorsese did a kids movie and it's animated? Sure did. Check it out, right? So that's the type of stuff that we look at on our show, Esoterica Cinema. So for anybody listening, where it's like you're looking to be exposed to maybe some different films, and the other thing about it too is that we really try to keep it fun. Like my thing is, I love deep dive film discussion podcasts. My problem is that all of them sound like NPR broadcasts, right? And everything's like, hello, we are here today to look at Kubrick's Paths of Glory. 1987, and like it's just that whole like you can hear the classical music playing and it's like an episode of Masterpiece Theater or something, but they're looking at films, right? So for us, our thing is it's like, hey, we're a couple of jackasses, dude. Like we're filmmakers, like we like having fun, we like comedy, right? Like I write comedy, he writes comedy. Part of the show too is for each episode that we do, we write and produce an original comedy sketch. So like I was telling you before the show, I jumped into like improv for a little bit before COVID started and just kind of went down that road because I've always really liked comedy. I did a stand-up routine, gigs on YouTube like several years ago, and just been kind of like slowly but surely dipping my toes in those waters. It took a lot for me to become confident. Like, I mean, I'm super comfortable doing stuff like this now, but if you had known me 20 years ago, like I was a clam, just couldn't get me to talk. Like as a kid, like a lot of people, like even my own daughter doesn't believe me when I tell her this, but like as a kid, like I was terrified of people. And like I was the kid who like during summer camp would sit in the corner reading some giant 1,200 page Stephen King book. And so it took a lot for me to really like come out and start to put myself out there and be comfortable. A lot of those experiences, doing the stand-up routine, doing the improv, getting into sales, things like that, helped me get to where I am today. So I didn't really. I'm a late bloomer in that respect. I understand.
I can understand you. Like I might seem like a big extrovert, but I'm actually naturally an introvert, and actually in my day life, I don't talk at all. I mostly burn it off on this kind of type of like, hey, I'll talk when we're recording, but it's a factor of like, you said something about like the human mind, how much I you don't know how much I might understand about it. The weird thing is when you look at like the idea of what a film critic is, there's a professional sense that goes behind it, which is why a lot of the podcasts you listen to have that NPR style voice. They have that type of professionalism to it because it's like putting on a job title. And sadly, when that job title or film critic title gets placed, everyone immediately thinks of Ratatouille, the food critic, the elegant sweater, this whole idea and style that you have to be. be. And nobody
Yeah.
understands that sometimes you just want to hear someone shoot the shit about movies and go. The thing is, like, you start to pick it up when they're keeping that NPR voice and they start to realize that the content in the podcast is not written down professionally. There are no like Joe Rogan style video effects or something like that. It's just a
Mm.
dude who's like, and then there was this scene. Oh yeah, remember that? Then you start to see like the
Yeah.
little bit come out. It's like that's what people want more of. They want to be able to relate to something. If they want to be so brainwashed or scripted or whatever it is, they can just turn on Sirius Radio or something else that's a show on television. They want you to be you, and they want that flair that involves with it.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And that's what we find, you know. So, like, even when I pitched this show to my co-host, I basically told him, I was like, so what I want to do is I want to split the difference between an NPR deep dive podcast, something like Film Spotting, which is a podcast I love, and I totally respect those guys and love that show. But it is a little dry for some people, and I want to split the difference between that and like a morning radio show, right? Some like weenie in the butt type shit, right? Like coming at you in the AM. So, you know, if we can take this sort of respect for film approach, you know, and really look in and discuss the specific decisions. So, for example, our show has spoilers, and we're open about it. We let you know right up front, like, this isn't a review program that's designed to get you to decide if you want to watch a movie or not. Like, this is for people that love movies, who watch movies, who don't even necessarily mind watching a bad movie if it's something that they can have an opinion on, right? Like, that's my thing. Like, I'll watch anything once because I'm a pretty opinionated dude. I like sharing my opinion, and more than anything, just for my own personal enjoyment, satisfaction, whatever. Like, I like having opinions on things that other people have opinions on. So, you know, like I said, you know, I'm the type of guy who, yeah, I'll go to the theater and let's get into a deep dive of, you know, that super, unseen documentary that Michael Haneke or, you know, some German filmmaker made. Like, yeah, I want to have an opinion on that, because that's going to be the stuff that you haven't seen. When you've seen as many movies as I have, like, anything that's going to be released through a major distributor is going to be a version of something you've already seen, right? Like, every Marvel movie that comes out is a retelling of the one that came before it. It follows that template like you're talking about. But when you get into Werner Herzog films and David Lynch films and a lot of these, you know, really just more artistic minded filmmakers, where it's, you know, there's not a ton of money involved, so they're allowed to get more creative because they don't have the same financial expectations. That's what interests me, because I've seen a lot of movies.
It's funny that you said artistic, because if you're talking about a Warner Herzog film, a lot of people would say like that's questionable just because of how far he goes into his films, which I think sometimes it's needed. It's like when you watch Rob Zombie House of a Thousand Corpses. It's like that is definitely questionable for a lot of people to watch, but it's also pretty intense. And I think that that's what when you let someone release like that, and when you let someone put that into a creative thing, like some people like that's sick or something.
Yeah.
Is it, or is it pretty powerful, the fact that they're letting him express himself and getting into a form that's not hurting anybody? It's just graphic for a lot of people to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's that whole thing of, you know, for whatever reason, with, I mean, dude, talk about politics, talk about art, talk about whatever you want, right? There's this whole thing of like, oh, well, I didn't like that, therefore it shouldn't exist. Like, that's the fucking stupidest thing in the
Cancel
world to me,
culture.
dude. Yeah, man. Like, again, dude, like, I've come far enough along to know that, like, I like some weird shit that not everybody likes. And, you know, if the filmmaker, the creator of this song, you know, the creator of whatever the medium is, you know, had listened to everyone else, it wouldn't exist and I wouldn't get to hear it. And like, selfishly, I love this thing. So like, let's just all be like, hey, not for me. Glad it's out there, right? And every so often, you're going to get something that does resonate enough to sort of cross over into the mainstream. But like, I mean, you know, we never have to worry about trauma films crossing into the mainstream, right? Like midnight movies, things like that, you know. So those are kind of, you know, the places where you can still go and get that, and there's not a lot of eyeballs on it. I think that's the other thing that I appreciate about smaller films too, is it's like when when nobody's paying attention, you can get away with so much more, right? And so on some of these little small films, dude, they're just like, you know what, fuck it, man, we're gonna do this. It's crazy. Sometimes it's in poor taste, sometimes it's not.
You want to know
But
it's
again, let people decide, right?
a really good film that's not really a small film, but if you ask people today, it probably would be a small film just on the basis of when it came out. The Naked
Mm.
Gun. That was fucking amazing.
Yeah, Naked Gun's awesome, dude. I love parody. I love parodies. And so
I kept looking at him like that's the guy from Superhero Movie. Like like Frank Drebin is the guy from Superhero Movie. And then I'm like, wait a minute, this was way before Superhero Movie. Then I'm like, why does that one guy look so familiar? And I looked, I'm like, that's O.J. Simpson. No fucking way.
Absolutely. By the way, dude, this totally shocked me, man. If you ever want to like have your mind blown, go look at a picture of young Leslie Nielsen. Leslie Nielsen's the guy who played Frank Dresden. He is a handsome motherfucker, dude. Like that
He's
guy.
handsome now. What do you? I mean, he was handsome back
he's
then.
fun, but it's so funny, dude, because like all these people, right? Like these older cats where you see them, or like a Mick Jagger type, right? Where it's like all I've ever known of Mick Jagger is that he's a 65-year-old dude that thinks he's 20 and does pouty lips and catwalk moves,
The
right?
bro is ripped, man.
Which is ridiculous to me, right? But then you go and you watch like Gimme Shelter, which is like a documentary on like a concert he did when he was like in his, those early 20 years. And it's like, oh my God, I 100% get it. Like this kid that's jumping around on stage is so charismatic. I would follow him across the country, paying $12 a ticket and saying fuck my job and all that.
Have a
right?
poster of him in your room and everything. It's like it's like you look at Slash. Slash hasn't even aged. He's always looked how he's always looked. Just the sunglasses.
Because his hair covers his face. Nobody actually knows what his face looks like. But yeah, so one of the funny things, dude, is on that note is that like we actually do original comedy sketches for each episode. And it's always on Esoterica Cinema podcast. And it's always inspired by the film that we looked at. So what we'll do is we'll like watch a movie like Seeking a Friend for the End of the World. And then we'll create a sketch where, it takes information from the movie and it's about a radio DJ who's broadcasting to people as the world's coming to an end, which references like the opening scene in that film. And then there's a couple little things along the way. And then we usually take some sort of, it's like a parody, like you're talking about with Naked Gun, So basically we were like, look, nobody's listening to us right now. So why don't we have commercial breaks? And then in those commercial breaks, we'll just make fake commercials. And then we can do comedy sketches. And hopefully it's a way to not waste someone's time during a commercial. But we also have the commercial format in place. Like maybe sometime down the road, advertisers will want to throw some shit up. We'll have that in place, right? We don't have to screw with the format. But in the meantime, we can sort of just deliver something extra to our audience. And it gives us an opportunity to really practice our writing chops and our production chops, and
never closing the creative.
Hopefully I like it, dude. Yeah, all this stuff just feeds into each other. And then on top of the books, dude, I'm actually like during quarantine I wrote a movie. Actually, like I told you, me and my buddy went to film school. He ended up making so
I got a couple movie pitches, so be prepared for mine.
You? Okay, cool. So my story is it's called Toast. And Toast is about our protagonist is a young, or not young to you, but 30s-ish schlubby substitute teacher, not particularly ambitious. And he lives in a house with an eccentric inventor roommate scientist sort. And this scientist sort is very abrasive to our main character, who's very sort of, calm to a fault. And one day, our roommate, whose name is Cyrus, the inventor, is working on a new invention and accidentally transports his body and mind into a toaster. And so his schlubby protagonist roommate, who's not particularly ambitious, is basically up to him to find a way to work with him and get him out. It's an indie comedy, micro budget, a couple little hijinks ensues. It's kind of like, imagine like a buddy comedy with like a schlubby protagonist, but his best friend is a toaster who's really like arrogant and abrasive, right? Kind of almost like a Rick Sanchez. So
I'm about to say Pickle Rick was the first thing I was thinking of.
Yeah, so the dynamic, I'm a huge Rick and Morty fan, and I basically was like, I want to make micro budget live action Rick and Morty. Like it very much has a sitcom structure. But the cool thing is that I actually have some really good actors that I've brought in that I'm going to be working with. And then I'm going to play Cyrus because most of him is a toaster, and I've been doing a lot of voice actor and voiceover work with a lot of the
Let me hear
comedy
it.
sketches that I'm doing. Yeah. So
Let me hear your
yeah,
voices, dog.
what I throw a voice out. What do
What
you want me
voice
to
do
do?
you want to do?
Okay. So
Everyone's
all right.
got one in their wheelhouse. I don't know if you looked
Okay.
at my past episodes, but I've had like 8 voice actor people in a row, like it just in like a
Have you?
month ago. So like I'm big on impressions. So you're hitting me
Okay,
here.
all right. So we'll just cycle through here, and I apologize because like I've only been doing this for a few months, so they're going to be of various qualities. So like I've got this English guy, and he's really nice and quiet and polite, and he likes to go down to the cafe and just sit and chat with some lovely fellows. But then I also got this like redneck southern crazy guy who's like, hey man, let's go get some meth and get out there. We'll shoot them clay dogs up there and get it. Yeehaw, buddy.
Why is it
Hey,
always meth? Why?
because I live in a small southern redneck suburb of Los Angeles, and there's a lot of meth. Let me tell
It's
you,
like the movie
it's because it's a fact, right?
It's the SpongeBob movie where they're all like slapping themselves on the knee, like heel, heel.
Yeah. And then I've got a very high pitched Jewish voice where I come into work every day, and I'm just trying to make some money for my family, and we're trying to get some stuff done. But all my time, my boss is just up my ass, and I can't really get out of there. And then I got this like, hey bro, hey, let me tell you, that shit right there the other day, that shit was hilarious, bro. That shit was funny as fuck, made me laugh. The homies was chilling. So
Oh my God. I just got anxiety from my day job at a gym. Jesus.
Yeah, exactly, dude. So these are some of the different voices that I've been working with and just coming up with, from improv to comedy. And
Can you do now? Those are more on accents. When it comes to impressions, though, do you do like anybody in particular? Like, could you like I can rip
no.
out a Christopher Walken
Oh,
or
let's hear your. I love Christopher Walken impressions. Let's hear yours. I'll try. I have a horrible one, but I want to hear yours.
everyone always after I say that, everyone's like, "Why don't you do it?" I'm like, I need to keep that prepared if I'm going to throw it out there like that.
You have to. Absolutely. You can't throw some shit out there and not be prepared to follow. Look, I just gave you.
And-
I just gave you 4 voices, and I'm not even an actor, bro. Okay.
he goes, "Oh my, this is tragic news." Like, it's
No, that's awesome. That was
so
great, dude.
I heard this recently on a podcast with Bill Burr, where he actually saw an old video of a ghost truck or something. He was showing Joe Rogan and Justin Long. I don't know if you remember who that guy is, but he
Yeah,
plays in
yeah,
F is for
absolutely.
Family. Well,
The Apple guy.
yeah, yeah. He basically Bill Burr said he's like the best mimic you've ever heard. Now, I'm what they would say. I'm not really a voice actor. I'm a mimic. If I hear something like in Arby's, we have the meat. Like if I hear that specific line, I'm able to recreate it, such as like George Takei, where he's like, "Oh my!" Like I can
yeah.
only recreate what they've said. So I can't just
Interesting.
toss out new lines. So if I've heard like that Christopher Walken impression is an impression of Christopher Walken that I heard on a Conan show. So that's where the wasn't, the whole it goes into a whole bit. So it's like it's hard to define, but it's a talent. I mean, it's something that's hard to do. And if you can nail it down, like it's something you got to practice that too. But it makes it so much fucking fun when you can like just fuck around with people in the everyday life. Like I remember like I live right next to New Jersey. Well, I mean, maybe a couple hours away. I'm in Maryland, so they all come down to my town for a tourist thing. And I mean, Jersey's just a heavy accent. Eventually, I just start going,
Yeah.
"I'm from Jersey," and it's like, oh Jesus! It's like you even feel the toxicity in it.
That's hilarious, dude. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where I mean, me and my, back in the day, me and my friends would just, I mean, we just fuck around with voices just because we're weird and silly, and that's, we grew up on cartoons, we watch the adult animated stuff, and like it just,
Can you do any cartoon voices?
No, so the funny thing, dude, is like I'm really bad at like you're talking about like specific impressions of people. But the funny thing about doing impressions is, and this is kind of like one of the tricks that they'll teach you, is there's some people, so like I don't know if you've seen like all the impressions that like Kevin Spacey does. I know it's
He does a lot.
not yeah. But like his Jack Lemmon and all this stuff, like he's great at impressions, and they sound exactly like the person, right?
Did you say Jack Lennon?
No, Jack Lemmon. I don't
Jack
know if you
Lemmon.
know who that,
I thought
that
you
is.
said fucking John Lennon was what you meant. I was like,
Oh no.
I'm John Lennon of the Beatles.
Dude, look at you.
Dude, my Don
You're a
Corleone,
veritable voice actor over here,
my
bro.
Don
I'll have to
Corleone
keep
is
your number on speed out.
my look. I haven't seen The Godfather, but my Don Corleone is my favorite. When he's like, "I must call on you for your services."
Jesus, dude, you're missing the boat, bro. You're
It's the
missing the boat. You
jaw.
got to be doing that
If
shit,
you could
man.
just do jaw placement, like where Scooby Doo's like, "Ruh-roh, Reggie." I've been talking to so many of them, and I actually got, like, my buddy does a few, like, I have a few friends that are either voice actors or audio drama people. So, like, if you ever want to
Yeah.
get into one of those shows, I could show you them. Like, my one buddy, his name is Squatch Ronson. He works with like Tom Segura and Christina Pazitsky doing videos for them and stuff on YMH, their
Excellent.
podcast. But
Yeah.
his is like a backwards radio show about, like, basically Florida. And he's like, I want you to do this character how you would do this character, like create a bit in it. I just made a
Yeah.
character called Rectum Randy, which it's a cooking show, but he sells you all the parts of an animal's rectum. And
Oh,
he's
that's
like,
amazing, dude.
so
What was it, like a pre-written sketch, or did you guys like improv it?
I just improv'd it. He's
That's
like,
awesome, dude.
well,
I love
he
that.
wrote a script, but he's like, I just want you to create what I want you to be you. And he knows my mind goes off on places. Next thing I know, I was creating a guy who owns a water park where the water is actually pee. And it's so he's, you're at a urine park basically.
Yeah. That's hilarious, dude. Dude, that's so funny because that reminds me of like the exact stuff that like we do with our sketches. Like the last sketch I wrote, it was Stephen King confronting Stanley Kubrick about changes that he made to The Shining, which, if you know anything about the difference between the book and the movie, are like dramatically different.
Yeah, I
And
know
it
that's
took
why he was
place,
upset too.
yeah, and I had it take place on the Jerry Springer show. So there's like chair throwing and everything like that, dude. It's amazing.
Why would people? I don't understand why people go on the Jerry Springer show until someone told me. Like, I heard a podcast where someone worked on Judge Judy, and they were like, "Why would people go on this show just to be harassed on national television?" It's like, because they get fucking paid. That's their first thing they say when
Yeah.
they get off the thing. Like, "Where's my check?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they get paid, and then look, dude, it's that whole people love attention, and for a lot of us, it doesn't make sense, but there are people that definitely subscribe to the concept of there being no such thing as bad publicity. It's kind of it's basically the same psychology as when your shitty little if your 7-year-old starts acting up. Because dad's always working and mom's pilled up not paying any attention, so all of a sudden they start wrecking the house, they start getting into trouble, and it's all just based on ultimately a desire for attention. So I think it kind of just folds into that a little bit.
There's a deep needed feeling in the world to want to be loved.
Yeah, it's crazy. We all want. I think that whether it's, and I think it works twofold. I think we need external love, but then there's also internal love. Like I was definitely someone that struggled a lot with like self-esteem issues when I was younger,
Same here.
and a lot of stuff like that. And it's so funny, dude, because like I talk to a lot of people, especially like I said, being a little bit older and having gone through a lot of that and working with artists, especially who tend to be a lot more susceptible to things like self-esteem issues and depression and things like that. It's really interesting to see how kind of everybody gets to where they get to. So like my thing, and this is just a piece of advice that I'll give to you or to anybody who maybe sees themselves, judges who they are by comparison, right? Like that's really where the self-esteem issues that I saw came from. Is it was like this expectation of like, oh, I should be this and I'm not. And that's ultimately what everything comes down to, right? So when I talk to someone, they couldn't possibly be interested in what I have to say because I'm me and I'm not interesting and I don't have valid opinions and da da da. And that stems from this idea of other people do, right? Because that's the thing. If you didn't have this expectation that everybody else had these magical qualities that you don't, you wouldn't hold it against yourself because there wouldn't be an expectation that you should have those things. So my biggest piece of advice that I tell everybody, and it sounds kind of shitty, stop giving other people so much credit, dude. That's all it comes down to, dude.
Well,
everybody's fucked up in this world. Everybody has self-esteem issues, has vices, monkeys on their back, negative thoughts, insecurities. Like whatever you're going through is so common that there is no reason to feel like you're less than anybody else. And if you can just acknowledge that, it's a really great place to start to be able to recognize your self-worth and your value.
There's a couple reasons I like if sometimes if this one of these podcasts I do gets kind of deep and emotional and opens up some stuff. It's like I'll never charge. I'll never do a Patreon for my content because I always want it to be free. Only on the aspect of a lot of times if I say something that might resonate with somebody or you say something that might resonate with somebody, there's somebody out there that's probably thinking that they're the only one going through something and they hear it and then it really helps them out in a spot where they need it. And it's free. A lot of people don't want to pay for things unless it's like high class quality stuff, which makes it hard as a producer or creator to be able to, use it as a living type thing. But my mentality is I never want to make a living off this just because my parents work in radio. If I wanted to do fucking radio, I would have fucking did it, but it's the concept of we brag in public and we cry in private. Nobody ever wants to be open about something. And if you are open about something, it's this weird push and pull is nobody can ever find the balance. You either get way too sensitive where every single one of your episodes is like a fucking therapy session where people are like, Jesus, like, all you're doing is bitch. And then there's a time where you're never vulnerable and people want to know what that vulnerability is. You're going to find your audience. You're going to find the people who care about you. But at the same time, this world is so obsessed with looking and all this type of stuff of how we need to judge others based on what we have. And also it even hits you even worse when you're in your 30s, only on the concept of the time you get closer to 30, the more you age, you start analyzing your life and realizing everything that's been thrust upon you since you were a kid is that you can be the president of the United States. You could be a fucking astronaut. Then you're 30 and you're working at Staples and you're like, well, fuck my life. It hits the point where it's even kids in their 20s. I'm in severe depression every single day, only on the concept of I look down at the fucking floor at my job and I'm like, I'm working at a gym. What the fuck do I want to do? And I don't know. But sometimes I feel like I'm just making it through. And if that's what it means right now, and that's where I feel complacent, then that's where it goes. Brings me to my movie pitch idea I want to toss it to you. So everybody's got a voice in their head, but I'm looking in the mirror when I'm like at work or something because the whole gym's fucking covered in them. And I'm staring at myself. I'm like, imagine if that voice was actually your reflection in the mirror. So as you're looking at the mirror, this person's just looking back at you and he's saying like, making you do horrible things to other people, like hurt people, like kill people. And then they think it's multiple personality disorder. So you get locked up. Then like about a year and a half later, after you've been in this mental institution for a long time, they pull you back out and someone, I guess when they pull you out, it's because they found new evidence of something and they figure out that your parents had told you that when you were in the womb, you absorbed your twin brother. And that's who it is. He's a tumor inside of your head that is making you do these nasty things. So it's like you can only see him. That might be a fucking movie. I don't know.
That's cool, bro. That. You know what? That totally like that reminds me of very much like 80s horror. I mean, there's a couple different ways you could go with it. You could go like really schlocky, or you could go more like psychological horror, right?
Like Daniel Radcliffe has to play it that
oh, he's down, dude. But I mean, yeah, you could get like a little bit more of an elevated, like a Jordan Peele or something to do that, and it would be one way. But you could also get a Roger Corman filmmaker to just do the like $100,000 exploitation version of that, right? There's a lot of different places that you can go with it.
I like Daniel Radcliffe. I don't think he did good in Guns Akimbo, but I liked him in the show. In the movie Horns was awesome, dude. That was a great fucking movie.
I think he's really good in everything, dude. Like we actually on our podcast, we've actually reviewed 2 movies. We've done Guns Akimbo and we've done Swiss Army Man, which is another great one.
Swiss Army Man was uncomfortable as shit to watch. I was like, what is, because it was just awkward. I had no idea. I felt like I was tripping on acid or something. I was like, why are they shooting a harpoon out of his ass?
But I mean, that's the whole thing. It's basically just a guy that's kind of going crazy. And so everything's just a figment of his imagination, which can be a really easy sort of, catch all for just doing whatever the hell you want in an unmotivated fashion. But I thought the movie did a good enough job. A couple problems with the ending. Again, you can listen to that episode if you want me to just drone on and on about that one. But yeah, I really like the choices that he makes in terms of the films that he's doing. He's got all the monies, right? Like
it's all the pent up aggression it's all the pent up aggression from Harry Potter. You do Harry Potter long enough, it's like Bob Saget now. Everyone's like, but you were the guy from AFE and Family Matt, whatever the hell that show was called.
Yeah, Full House.
Full House. And he goes, but his stand-up comedy, he's talking about his dick and stuff. It's like, because he's releasing from all those years of just pent up being like restricted.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing about actors too, you know, is people, for whatever reason, dude, it's so funny. It's like you can be one thing, right? Like you can be a filmmaker that writes a certain type of film, a writer that writes a certain type of book, an actor that portrays certain type of characters. And it's really, really hard to make money. So oftentimes, and especially being creative, it's like, yeah, look, I don't just do one thing. You know, I can play the nice dad and I can be, you know, the evil, vindictive serial killer or anywhere in between. So I'm going to take a bunch of different roles. And it's really funny to see like what you invest your creative energy in and what you as an artist find value in with regards to the work you create versus what it is that people latch on to, right? Perfect example. So have you seen the film Bruce Almighty?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a, do you know the scene where he meets the Latino gang members and he makes like the dog come out of the dude's butt or
It's a
whatever?
monkey,
Or
capuchin
Monkey. Yeah,
monkey.
yeah, 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 yeah. So that actor is actually out here in LA, right? And a good friend of mine who's in the Latino community ended up meeting that guy at a club. And it's the same thing, dude, where he's like, oh, hey, what's up, bro? You're the guy from Bruce Almighty with the monkey. He's like, yeah, yeah. Funny thing, dude, I've been in like 100 movies, and
He has been in a lot of movies.
I'm like a serious actor
He's
that
in
does
Breaking
serious
Bad.
roles. Yeah, he's like, and every single person knows me as the dude who has a monkey comes out of his butt in Bruce Almighty. And so it's like one of these things, but like he probably still gets royalties from that. He's probably gotten insane amount of work from that.
It's
He's
like,
probably gotten into clubs for free and had meals picked up because, oh, that's the guy, right? But
and
that's
even
not where he puts most of his energy.
so, an even better example, and I'm not trying to shame your example, but Will Smith in The Fresh Prince. They asked him before they started The Fresh Prince, and they said, "What do you want your character name to be?" And before Will Smith could answer, the guy goes, "Just remember, this is what people are going to remember you as forever." So he goes, "All right, then I'll be Will Smith because that's my name and that's me, and I want people to remember me as me." You don't remember Alfonso, you just
Yeah,
remember
yeah, yeah,
fucking Carlton. So it was the
yeah.
perfect example.
Yeah, no, that's yeah, 100% spot on, dude.
Everyone hates Evan Almighty too, and I thought that was a good movie.
I didn't see that one. I didn't check that one.
He builds an
It's
arc.
yeah, it's you know it's so funny too. Like the movies when you're into like indie films, like it's so funny because people are like, oh, you know, did you watch? Well, Citizen Kane's a bad example, but you know, oh, did you watch? You know, Knives Out or whatever, and you're like, oh no, I was busy watching a documentary on South Korean pig farmers in black and white. And
I'd
it's
rather
like,
watch that than Knives Out. Knives Out was like just hard. I only watched, I think, because the Human Torch was in it. But
yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. I
even
thought it was a good movie. It wasn't as memorable as I wanted it to be, but it was kind of one of those movies. Like it was enjoyable. I dug it.
I like the mystery aspect of some stuff. I like it when they try and make you figure it out. Like I don't ever get scared at horror movies. The only time I ever really get
Yeah.
scared is when I start to notice like there's a mental health issue. Like
Okay.
for instance, like I saw the movie The Visit with like the crazy grandparents. I'm the
Okay.
only one
Yeah.
in the theater like this isn't scary. This isn't nothing. But then I started realizing like, oh shit, that's not the real grandparents. And then they're suffering from like severe mental disorders. And I'm like, all right, now I'm fucking scared because that's a legit thing.
Yeah. 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 It's funny. I actually. Well, you just said you got scared. So I often ask people. Excuse me. I often ask people a lot, like, what if any films legitimately scare them? Because I can honestly say I have never been genuinely scared by a movie. Like I do have my rate increase. I do think, oh, you know, that's creepy.
That's
I
that's
cringe. I
that's what I
cringe at torture
consider. Yeah.
porn, right? Like, especially when it comes to like teeth and fingernails, dude. Like, if you're pulling someone's teeth or fingernails out with pliers, like,
Bro,
oh yeah, I'm always gonna
yo,
cringe,
I
right?
just
Like,
had a dream last night where I was at a pool and I went like where people put their head on like the little like the edge of the pool.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And imagine like it curves out a little bit like a lip. I was like,
yeah.
imagine if I put my teeth on that and just crunch down. Like
Oh no,
something
no,
was
dude,
forcing
no.
me to do it and I couldn't get it to stop. Like it was just
Oh
my
my
mouth.
god, dude.
Yeah, so that made me cringe. I was like,
Yeah,
fuck.
that's like a self curb stomp. That sounds absolutely horrible.
Like when
But yeah,
people take
so
like knives and like you see a movie where someone's like, I can't get it to stop, and they do something like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's what it was with the curb. I was like, "Urgh."
Oh, that's horrible. That's horrible. And yeah, so the thing is, like, I have visceral reactions to those scenes, but I'm never scared. Like, it's not like afterwards I'm like, oh, I feel hesitant about doing this, that, or the other. Or at night, I'm like, oh, all of a sudden I feel like Jason's gonna come, kill me with the mask. But like none of that shit ever happens to me. So
Then I've only been scared by one movie, and that was whatever that movie was.
Arachnophobia.
I saw it when I was 4, and I'll never go sit in
That's
a
hilarious.
barber chair without being able to look behind me, because that dude that leaned back in the chair and the thing fucking, that got me. Like, that's it for me. I think all my scared stuff came from when I was really little, like peeking around the corner watching it while my parents were watching it. And then I had a Chucky doll. That was my brother's. Then my brother saw Chucky. Then it was gifted to me. And then I was like, oh, why did he get presents? And then I saw the movie Chucky. I threw that bitch out the window. I said, no.
Yeah, there is something that is particularly creepy about like I think of like Poltergeist and like the little clown doll, that scene. Like I had a friend of a friend whose grandma had an entire room dedicated to those little tiny porcelain
That's my grandma.
French clowns.
Yeah.
That shit, there's that. Now I will say that was terrifying, but that was real. Again, that wasn't a movie. That was a real room that was terrifying.
This was probably when I was little. I stayed at my grandma's house, and she had a whole room in her guest room that was filled with those little like doll clown things. And I remember I went to sleep, and this was back in the day, like when you're watching regular cable, not Netflix. So 1 o'clock in the morning, I hear and it's the static on the TV, and I'm like, what the? And it like woke me up, and I like turn over because like I look over and there's a whole dresser of those things, and I'm like just staring at them, and it seems like they're all looking at me because it's like slowly dim where you can only see like half their face lit from like the screen. And I'm like, yo, this is how people die in movies. Like if I stay under the covers, nothing can hurt me.
Yeah, no, that's legit terrifying. And actually, so I will say that I only ever had in my life one movie inspired like nightmare, like recurring nightmare type thing that would legit like this is when I was younger. Of course, I haven't had this dream in like 20, 30 years, however long it's been. But I remember being terrified of the Gremlins, which is super funny because I love Gremlins to this day. 1 and 2, like they're some of my favorite movies. Probably some psychological thing where because I was terrified of it and I got over it. And
that scared me from Furbies, right? Though. I had a Furby and I saw Gremlins and I threw that bitch out the window too.
Yeah, dude. So, and this was crazy because I used to have this recurring nightmare was actually a mashup of a few different things. It was Gremlins, it was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and some sort of office thing. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles connection is because it involved April, and then who was her nerdy friend with the glasses, the librarian looking chick?
Donatello? Probably, oh no, wait, librarian looking chick.
It was like April O'Neil's best friend in the animated series. I don't believe that she was in the movies, right? Either way.
Velma?
So let's go with that, sure. So either way, April and her friend, not Velma, are in an office setting around a copier, okay? And they're chit-chatting about some bullshit. And there's a candy dish, right, on like a little counter with some gum. And the same exact thing happened every time, where April's nerdish friend goes to grab some gum and put it in her mouth. And April's like, no, don't do it. And she's like, I'm going to do it anyways. And she starts chewing the gum. And then she immediately goes, oh, I don't feel so good, with her red horn glasses and her big oversized gray sweater. And she's like, oh, I don't feel so good. And then all of a sudden her head snaps back. Two gremlin claws come out of her mouth, split her body in half, stand there, go rah, and then terrorize the office. And then I would wake up.
How old were you?
7, 8.
What the fuck?
Yeah, and all because I loved Siskel and Ebert, which, aging myself here, it was a televised movie review show. It's where 2 thumbs up or 2 thumbs down came from. And Siskel would give it thumbs up, thumbs down. Ebert would give it thumbs. And it was just from a clip, right? Like they reviewed the movie and they showed a clip that happened to have the gremlin in it. Like I had never even seen the movie. Just the trailer and the visual, 5-second clip that I saw on that show was enough to like sear that gremlin image in my brain. And I was a huge Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan at the time, so I guess it just kind of mashed that up. But yeah, dude, you made me totally think of that. I haven't thought of that in years.
I had one dream that kind of shook me so bad where I knew I would never survive a zombie apocalypse. I had been binging on like The Walking Dead and everything like that, like when it was in its 3rd season. And then I had a really intense zombie dream where I realized, oh no, if that ever happened, like I wouldn't survive. I wouldn't make it. And it was like this whole, like you hear all the time, like I was always talking about, like, what would you do in a zombie apocalypse? What would you do? And I was sitting at the dinner table. I was just like, fuck, I wouldn't even make it. Like I wouldn't go 3 weeks in. I probably end up doing something stupid and then dying. And like, it's just like this whole like thing, like somebody took the joy out of the whole idea of what would you do in a zombie apocalypse. It was like that movie with Tyrese Gibson where they're at a mall and it's a zombie thing.
Dawn of the Dead, right?
That's just like I don't know what to do. Like you can ask. I've asked multiple people on this thing way back in the day when I was like at the 300 episodes. I was like, "What would you do in a zombie apocalypse?" They give me this long 50-minute speech, and I'm like, "Okay, what if they're not that type of zombies? What if it's I Am Legend zombies? That's the whole reason I won't take the vaccine until 6 months after it works. I'm not fucking doing that one first. I'll let everybody else go first. I'd rather just bleach everything around me and hide in the bathtub with a German Shepherd. Seems like an okay life.
It's at least good for 6 months, maybe a year if necessary. It's got a shelf life on it though, for sure.
I'm saying. That was a great movie, and a lot of people don't give that movie credit.
I haven't seen it in a while. I loved the movie when it came out. I remember saying the same thing. I remember thinking it got a lot of. I do wonder. I think some of those effects may not hold up super well right now. Is the one thing that I'm worried about. But the thing is that like people don't even know that like that's based on a book, I Am Legend, by this author Richard Matheson, who was one of the all-time great television writers because he wrote I would say probably a good 15 to 20% of Twilight Zone episodes. So like most of like the original Rod Serling Twilight Zone episodes, like Rod Serling wrote the most. And then right behind that was Richard Matheson. And he wrote all the good ones, dude. Wrote 5 Characters in Search of an Exit, like Serve Man, like all the greatest. And so like it's really cool because when you watch that movie, it's a very good representation of the film, which plays more of like a like it's really about the survival, right? Like the book kind of has like a Night of the Living Dead, like mostly just about one man surviving sort of feel. So but yeah, dude, I dug the movie. I thought it was cool. I thought they did some really cool things. It's unfortunate that they couldn't. It was so I don't know how much you know about it, but it was totally one of those victims of like studio test audience feedback. You know, where they originally like just were gonna have that devastating ending that like the book actually had, right? But then test audiences hated it, and we got to make money because. And this is, I guess, this kind of brings us back around to what I was saying before about liking indie films, you know, is that like when you have a huge giant movie that's going to be a summer movie with Will Smith and it costs $80 million, like there are absolute financial expectations in place. Your movie is not being made because it's a passion project. Your movie is being made or at least financed and is seeing production and distribution and release because people have a vested interest in it.
I Am Legend was $80 million.
Yeah, that was a big, huge movie, dude, at the time. Yeah.
Wow.
It was a summer movie. I don't know, 70, 75, something like, but it was a summer blockbuster. It was released in summer. Will Smith alone cost $20 million. So
it's like that movie they made called $1 Billion Movie, and then they made a movie using $1 billion of a budget, and at the ending, the guy who paid the $1 billion was like, "What the fuck?" And it was just a bunch of bullshit. Like they put Johnny Depp in it, and he was only in it for like 5 minutes of the movie, but it was like they just blasted their budget on a bunch of stupid things, and they really only made it for like $10,000, but they just used all the rest to make it as crazy as possible. Like, oh, hey, would you shoot a scene for us? The guy's like, just a random stranger on the street. Sure. What do you want me to do? We're gonna give you $50,000. The guy goes, $50,000. He goes, $100,000, and that's how they were spending the budget. They were just tossing shit out there.
Yeah. Well, hey, if any of those people want to kick a few bucks all this way for toast, I'm available. Financiers, get at me. I'll give you points. I'll break them off.
I'm pretty sure both the guys that wrote it were stand-up comics, so you could probably tweet at them.
Yeah. No, I'm sure a lot of movies have been financed on a tweet, right?
I don't trust those. Everybody on their fucking profile is either a philosopher or a stand-up comic. I'm like, what? Are we just going by titles? Can I be Doc Ock or something? Like, Jesus.
That is the world that we live. I mean, that's that whole entertainment thing. Like, and this is absolutely true. To take it from a salespeople, like, it's not as well as an artist. It's not the way things are, it's the perception of the way things are. That's if you understand and know how to manipulate that, you can literally get anywhere you want to go. And that's my problem, is because I had, apparently good parents that instilled morals and values in me. So I have stupid ass things and beliefs where I like shouldn't take advantage of people and like make sure everybody gets paid equally, right? Like if I had just been one of those assholes who could come and be like, hey, you're gonna intern on my movie. No, you're not gonna get anything out of it, but I'm gonna sell you just a crap ton of lies. And like that's my biggest thing, dude. Like when I try to get authors to publish with me, like I have competition who are out there like, yeah, dude, we're gonna make you $1 million bestseller and we're gonna do this and blah blah blah. And I know it's bullshit, dude, because you have like $700 to work with, and that includes coming up with a cover that's gonna be at least half that.
I
And
had
my thing is I'm always like, look, bro, I can't make you a bestseller overnight. If I knew how to do that, I'd do it for myself. Here's what I can do. I can help make sure that you have a really sharp manuscript. I can make sure that it adheres to all the elements of story structure, that we have a first, second, third act, beginning, middle, and end. I can get you awesome art. I can get you perfect editing. I can get you some really good people to do blurbs, but I can't make you a best-selling author overnight. And I'm upfront with people about that, and it screws me over. And they end up going with these assholes who tell them they can. And then on top of it, most publishing contracts have built in a thing of first right of refusal, where whatever your next project is, your current publisher has to be offered it first, say yes or no, and then you can go shop it around. So these people bring them in, write these bullshit stipulations into these contracts, and then basically force them to like do business with them in effect, because if they don't, they're in violation of contract. I don't do that shit, and it fucks me over.
You're telling me that the world is a money scheme? Everyone's
Go figure.
pay to
Go
play.
figure. Go figure that life here in America is pay to play, and nobody gives a shit about your art and only wants to know how much money they can make off your thing.
I don't have a lot of questions for the universe, but I want to know, what is the cap on the number of books that are published every year that are New York Times bestsellers? Because it seems like every fucking one is number one, and I'm like, okay, well, are we just getting random people to review it? Because I've met a lot of people that say I wrote a number one bestseller. If anything, I'm gonna undersell the shit out of my book. Like I don't want. It's a book about life. It teaches you things. There you go.
Yeah, nobody and nobody will buy it. Trust, take it from somebody who took that approach. Funny thing, I'm going to ask you a question, because every single person, including myself and every single author that I've ever asked this question to,
I'm not an author.
Has been no. I know. I just anybody. I'm saying whether you're an author or not. Most people I ask this question and give them the answer to, they're shocked by the results, and it'll demonstrate something about the health of our industry real quick. So so obviously, movies make $80 million, sell this and that. My question to you, and there's a number, how many copies of your book or anybody's book do you need to sell, would you guess, to make the New York Times bestseller list?
I'm going to guess it's something stupidly low. It's going to be probably maybe 500, 685. I'm going to go 685. I don't have to.
Okay, that's actually really low. No, 20,000 copies. If you sell 20,000 copies, you are a New York Times best-selling author. That's not a month. That's historical. Now, here's the thing. Profit-wise, a book looks like anywhere from $5 to $7 per copy, and then that gets split up between publishers, authors, paying for marketing, etc.
Well, it's got to be like $8 because we're doing hardback, no paperback bullshit.
I actually really like paperbacks, dude. I don't discriminate. I don't know if you can see, that's all paperbacks right there.
I don't know if you can see, but I have a bookshelf right there. It's covered by a serape, which I found out.
All I see is Colonel Sanders looking kind of creepy.
That's my KFC sign, and then my speed limit one above it. Welcome to my studio. No, but it's a bookcase with a bunch of books. Actually, the weirdest thing about it is how I acquired that. My old gym owner, her daughter-in-law had passed away from a severe cancer, and she gave me the keys to her storage unit. There's a printer in there, and whatever you want, we're just going to throw out, so you can go in there and go through it. So I started going through these boxes, and I see a bunch of old books, and that bookcase was in there, and there was a letter where they had, I think, oh God, I can't really remember the name of who the author was. It was I think Jeff something. She had mailed him a letter appreciating the book that he had wrote,
Oh
and
wow.
he sent her a letter back, and it was in like a painting and everything, like one of those like little framed things that was in the thing. It had like a letter of like this was the. He's a really. I looked him up. He's really talented too. I have to find his name again.
Yeah, dude, I love stuff like that. Yeah, and it was back then, where I mean, the modern day equivalent of that, unfortunately, is responding to someone on via a tweet on social media, and it lacks that just that
Joe
flair,
Coy liked my tweet. I was so
historical, right?
happy.
Yeah, right. But at the same time, like I'm never gonna be like, oh wow, babe, check out this awesome tweet from like 10 years ago that such and such wrote to someone, and then he responded back like K with a thumbs up emoji,
You
right?
know.
As opposed to now where you find these old letters of like, oh, Stanley Kubrick messaged this fan back on an old school typewriter on this like acid washed paper with his like letterhead, and you show me that, and that's amazing.
Guys, I framed the condom Stanley fucked my mom.
Right?
Well, like, the best part about that is though, if that burns, if you have a tweet that's on the thing, it's on the iCloud, so then it's saved forever. See,
I
I
don't know.
lost, like, it goes back to the beginning where you say about judging people. I lost the whole fame aspect of things recently on the aspect of my cousin was raised by Sam Elliott, and he was like, dude, they're just fucking people, man.
Yeah,
I'm like, but
yeah, they
it's
are.
Sam Elliott. He goes, yeah, but it's just, and it's, he calmed me down from it too. But like, I stopped reaching out for famous people. I've had all my favorite famous people on here already. I mean, fucking the singer to the band that I'm wearing their shirt for,
Nice.
famous comedians and stuff, but they're just people. And honestly, the best conversations I've had with people that don't have fame. And honestly, the worst
Yeah.
interactions I have had are people that want this professional structure. Johnny Pemberton, I told him, no, fuck off. Only on the aspect of he ghosted my ass and then wanted an immediate interview. And I'm like, no, sorry,
Yeah,
just everybody gets just one shot with me. If you would have said no, or if you would have think, move on to someone else. It's not the aspect
exactly,
of I'm
right?
not trying to neglect. It's just like I'm not going to sit here and try and convince you and waste any more of either of our times if you
Yeah.
don't want to talk. It's like I had a flat earth person message me through a fucking hydraulic pen page on Instagram, and I posted on my Twitter. I was like, so what are you? He's like, this person has been on the Tinfoil Hat podcast and all these like top name conspiracy brand podcasts, and I want to get them on your show. What's a good way to contact you? I'm like, through Instagram, like you're doing right now. Well, I'm his booker, and I'm like, really? You're his booker because you look like a fucking pen page. And they're like, this is how flat earthers work. It's a kind of like a pseudo personality, so we don't get deleted off Instagram or something like that. I'm like, okay. And they're like,
Wow.
just to let you know, you should have a professional email if you're gonna have guests and you want to do this professionally. I'm like, joke's on you, bitch. I don't want to do it professionally. I talk about poop. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, dude. No, and there's so much, I mean, look, there's so much emphasis on, formality. Like, that's the thing, dude. This is my biggest thing. Like, I say this all the time in sales, dude. All the time in sales is so often people confuse formality with professionalism. Just because you walk with perfect posture and say, hello, good day, sir, madam. I come to you with a proposition. Like, fuck that, dude. Like, these days, people are smart, dude. They've been sold to for so long. And especially being out here in LA, where like we know this is all bullshit. Like, we know the movies are just smoke and mirrors. We see how they're made. We know that Tom Cruise is 5'2", and we know that
He's got a
this
tooth in
person's
the
all
middle of his
fake and
forehead.
blah blah blah. Like, people are smart. So like, I find that these days the best thing you can do is just stop treating people like they're idiots. Everybody knows your fucking games with business, dude. Everybody's been lied to about shit, right? Like, I got so pissed off the other day with Cyberpunk. I don't know if you're a video gamer, but like
My
CD
buddy's
Projekt
playing the
Red is
shit
this.
out of that right now.
I won't even get into it. Basically, they fucked over like half the player base of this potential game with PS4 gamers by like promising them an experience that they were not even prepared to deliver. I don't want to make this whole thing about it. I'm very butthurt about it though. But much in the same respect as you, I have a night of crying to my beer about it. I wake up the next morning, I'm fucking moving on, dude. I got podcasts to record, got sketches to write, I got fucking other shit I can do.
I
Right?
took off a couple of days when I got Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and now I can't even beat the game. I'm at 98% complete because the fucking game glitches out and you can't complete some of the shit. So I'm like,
that's exactly what's happening.
when the fuck are they gonna fix it? Like,
exactly.
I'm tired of this pay to play bullshit.
Well, no. Here's the thing. It's not pay to play, because here's the thing. That's how this works. I gave you my $60. That's the thing. I did pay, and I'm supposed to be able to play, but I can't. And that's the problem, right? You do not take my money on a $60 pre-order, deliver me a broken game, and then be like, oh, it's cool. I'm going to hold on to your money, but maybe sometime in the next 3 to 9 months, we'll have it working for you.
We need more. Scan your debit card, Jason. Scan your debit card and feed me more income.
And the most upsetting thing, dude, I was like, okay, I'm going to give them a day and I'm going to see how they respond to this. And that's going to decide whether or not I'm going to return this. Okay. And so 24 hours passed, no public statement to the gamers, to their customers, nothing. Even if you don't want to apologize for the shitty experience, at least be like, hey, we understand there's some stuff going on. We're working on it. No, it's forthcoming, blah, 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 this and that. None of that. But there was a letter posted on their website to all the shareholders, letting them know not to worry about the poor response to the game, because we have this whole system in place and we're on a path to profitability, and there's no reason, because their stock tanked 30% within 5 days. And so and the stupidest thing, the reason their stock is tanking is because they delivered their audience a shitty game. The solution to get their stock to rise is to address said shitty game and make it better. Instead, they're bypassing them to try to personally reassure the shareholders, and all that's going to do is stave the bleeding. If they would just deliver the game they promised, or fix the game to be able to halfway deliver the game they promised, then their stocks would go up. But they don't have their eye on the prize. Their eye is on the fucking money, and it's going to tank them, dude. Like, they're not going to. If they come back from this, it will take a long time, because they are the guys who made The Witcher 3, and people love The Witcher 3.
That game is shit.
Dude, I love that game, dude.
I played
it took me
5
three
minutes.
times to get into. It took me 3 times to get into, but the third time, what you have to realize about that game is it's all about the story.
So I know that. So if you're playing the third one, you're kind of fucked, considering you missed the other 2.
I mean, I guess, dude, you could say the same thing about watching episode 4 of Star Wars in 1978 or whenever the fuck it was. Like, they did a fine job.
There's some things that happen in this world. Like, I played Origins for Assassin's Creed at my buddy's house, but he was already halfway through the game, and I never played that combat system before. So and every time I play Origins, I just keep thinking about how many times I kept dying in the beginning, and I was like, all right, fuck this. Like, it's like you got to start at the beginning. You got to roll with the punches. And there's only been 2 things in my whole entire life I have ever paid extra for like another secondary purchase or a thirdary purchase. One was I paid for RuneScape Gold like 3 years ago, and it was the most craziest awkward transaction I have ever had in my entire fucking life, where someone called me on the phone at 1:00 in the morning when I was doing it, asked if I was Robbie. I said yes, and they hung up. And then some person meets me at a bank in Lumbridge or some shit. Then the second one.
Are you sure you were buying RuneScape and not drugs?
That
sounds a lot like a drug.
I have 10 million gold in my fucking account that'll prove to you that I paid $3.99 for that shit. Second is I had a Scientologist person on my podcast, but I had not found him through Scientology. I had found him through a Dungeons and Dragons thing. Very nice guy, amazing dude. So I knew that was kind of sensitive subject to go into. So I instead just focused on the D&D, and we had amazing fucking impressions, everything. But then I had to dive deeper into Scientology, where I found a page that is a Scientology page in California, and I had reached out to them, and I have to do a lot of shit where it was like, we need you to submit this, submit this, submit this,
Yeah.
submit this. And I'm like, okay. And I was getting lit up by a lot of
I
Scientology people
bet.
messaging me in my DMs, where now I have a 50 like people request thing in my spam, because it's a bunch of people like, you cannot leave the church, because once you open up that door, they're like Jehovah's Witnesses. They don't fucking go
Oh
away.
yeah. Yeah, no, that's exactly how they franchise that shit, man. No, dude, it's like it's some mob shit, dude. Like once you're in, there's no getting out, homie.
You get
Yeah.
Tom Cruise to message me and I'll fucking think about it. I want to get Leah
Yeah.
Remini on here to talk about that shit. She's hot to me.
Yeah, no, I mean, dude, I mean, it seems like I mean, she has that whole didn't she do a program, right? Like she did the whole like surviving Scientology or some shit
Yeah,
like
she's
that, right?
fucking,
Like
she's, I like it. She's like, she'll
yeah,
put
she's
me
a
in
beautiful
line.
woman.
She'll
Absolutely.
put me
Yeah.
in line.
I think we're learning a little bit about you. Yeah,
My
right
one
now.
ex-girlfriend could throw me through a coffee table. And I was like, I like that. I like that, because I know
All right.
I can freak out. And then you're the really tough one.
All right, so you like strong women. That's cool. That's cool. I can dig that.
I'm a feminist dream.
Yeah,
Strong women. I don't like the whole idea of feminism. I don't like the whole idea of like being so active. I mean, I get you're passionate about it, but at the same time, I feel like it causes more damage sometimes.
dude, I mean, here's the thing, man. It kind of ties into what you're talking about earlier with like this cancel culture. Here's my thing, dude. Like, what we need to do is we need to decide to what degree we let people speak and how we respond, right? Because everybody seems very into this, like, well, when the person says stuff that I agree with that shares my politics and my outlook, they should absolutely be allowed to speak whenever they want. But if they don't, then they need to shut up and play basketball or play guitar or whatever, right? And so my thing is, it's just like, look, dude, like, we just need to have consistency, man. Like everybody has this thing where they make exceptions for their own thing. Like I hear it all the time. Like you see it on both sides. Like I was talking to somebody recently, and I don't want this to get too controversial, political, whatever. But like for example, like right now you have two bakeries, right? And the one bakery refuses to serve gay people, and the other bakery refuses to serve military vets. Okay,
Oh my god,
refuses to serve military vets.
This is gonna get.
Here's the thing, people. In my opinion, I don't care what we're gonna do, but here's the thing: either both bakeries have to serve their respective customers, or neither of them have to. The problem is that people say, well, I'm on this side, so the bakery has to serve the soldier, but doesn't have to serve the gay person. And then the other person says, well, I'm on the other side, so the person has to serve the gay person, but not the cop. And it's like, this doesn't work if you get to just pick and choose willy-nilly what we do. Either we're consistent across both sides of the political spectrum or whatever it is we're dealing with, or we're not. But everybody seems to have this idea of like, well, we should make an exception for my thing. And it's like, no, because it doesn't work. It's like a marriage, bro. Like I've been married for like 4 or 5 years, but we've been together for like 12, 13. We've owned a house for 10, had a kid forever the whole time. Like the worst, like everybody's like, you know what the answer to this problem is? Digging in harder to our side, not giving an inch, just really just nail in on either side and be like, no, we're not giving any flexibility whatsoever. Everything we ask for or nothing. And it's like, as someone who's married, how does that work with your wife? How does that work with your husband? When you guys have challenges, when you encounter something where you're seeing something differently or you're fighting, do you think the way to resolve that is both of you dig in and not give an inch? No, it's fucking bullshit. The way you resolve it is you have a negotiation. Both sides give up a little bit and meet in the middle. Sometimes maybe that requires an outside party and a mediator, but hopefully you two can just figure that shit out together. So literally, business is about you give this, I give this, we meet in the middle, we're getting a deal done. I'm in sales, I know this.
Yeah, but it's
Working
hard to
shit out with
it's hard to think in that mindset, because it's the same thing like with our judicial system. It's the same thing when you get into an argument with someone like, where are the fucking keys? You last had them. No, I didn't. I know you had them, but then you're arguing for 15 minutes. The next thing you realize, the keys are in your fucking pocket and you're like, oh shit,
yeah.
I can't back down now because I've already committed too much. It's a fucking game. My issue is like with the Baker scenario, for instance. There was a fake fucking article a really long time ago that was a fire starter for a lot of bullshit that turned out to be fake. These people had sorted or sought out to find a company or a a couple that was doing marriages in their house, and they knew they would say no about them doing a gay marriage, and it became this big fake fire starting article. It's the same shit with the fucking gender pay gap or some shit. That was bullshit too, and it was in the Guardian. It was a whole aspect of women work less hours because they'd rather be home with their fucking kids. You get paid the same amount. There's no difference. It's just an hour thing. Guys are more than willing to work their fingers to the bone on the concept of they think that's what is providing for a family. That's the old mindset, though. You can be whatever the fuck you want now, but it's this whole thing of like nobody's really diving into it. They're reading a fucking headline and then they're running with it. I work at a gym that is mostly females that work there. They all get paid the same fucking amount as me, and I get way less fucking hours. Like, because I don't want to be there. I'd rather work out, or I'd rather be doing something that I feel like I like to do, like podcasting or something, or fucking
Yeah.
playing video games or jacking off if I got the time for it. I don't fucking know. It's this whole idea of like, you got to sometimes research this shit, because I was pro that for a very long time. Like, well, women should easily get paid as much as men. They do. But men in their mindset, it's like having a parent. Like I have a parent where it's like buying you things makes up for a lot of shit of not being there or something. That's not, sometimes you
Yeah.
just want someone to talk to you. Stuff doesn't mean shit in the concept of what it means to be a parent. Sometimes it's just being
Yeah.
there.
I think that the most difficult, the most when you get to a certain point, and especially this happens, I think you kind of touched on this earlier, as you get older, the most selfless act you can do is give somebody your time. And that's the thing, dude, because it's like you say, writing a check is fucking easy, right? Putting some shit on my debit card, maybe not early on, right? Like, but especially, I'm a little bit older, my earnings have increased, I'm with a partner, we have dual income, blah, 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 right? That stuff gets easier, and it becomes really easy to write a check, and it becomes really easy to, make a donation, throw that shit on your credit card. What's really a selfless act is giving someone not just your time, but also your your time willingly, right? And not like, okay, dude, you got 10 minutes and I'm gonna be shitty about it the whole time. And then afterwards I'm gonna be like, okay, you owe me now because I gave you 10 minutes. Like, nah, fuck that, dude. Like you have to be here for me. You have to be like, you know what? Yeah, I have a million other things I could be doing, and I don't want to have a difficult conversation right now. If it was up to me, I wouldn't. But it's important to me that I am here for you and that I show you that I value you as a friend, as a person, whatever. So I'm going to give you my time, right? And so again, there's just a lot of people where because they don't have money, it's easy to buy them off. But to me, that's really when for me, it's like more so than any financial donation. It's like the stuff that I really appreciate is like the person that like actually read my book, the person that listens to my podcasts, right? Like the people where it's like, and I understand, you're not into movies, you're not going to like my podcast, right? But like you still like listen to that one episode. I was like, hey dude, you know what, I listened to it, sounds like it's really great for people that like movies. It's not for me, but cool, I wish you good luck, right? Telling me that you liked you listen to one of my sketches, or you read like that to me, because you know again, it's really easy to drop $20 in a cup, but actually sitting there and being like, yeah, you know what, like I'm gonna choose to read this person's book instead of this book. Even if you read, right, you're still making a choice to read a no names book over a Stephen King book or a Robert Heinlein book or anything, and I appreciate that because I understand that. you
That's
know
why this means a lot to me. The fact that you gave me your time to be on the show or be on this thing, because you know how hard it is and how lost in translation it gets when you say, I just want to have a conversation, without someone going, but what do you want to talk about? What do you want from me? Was it something that I created that you saw that maybe you liked or you didn't like? People are
Mhm.
constantly afraid to open up that door because of the fact of whenever someone messages someone or gets them on their show, everything nowadays is hate stuff. It's all like,
Yeah.
you said this or you said this, and I don't agree. It's like, oh, no, I legit just want to talk to you. Like, I
Yeah.
literally want to understand who you are, how you think, your perspectives. Just have a good chat. Like if we met on the street, because there's not any of that happening anymore. If you haven't noticed, people are very isolated. I made a joke a long time ago when we first started wearing masks. Like, why are you bitching about wearing a mask when you've been wearing one your whole life? You're never truly
Yeah.
showing who you really are. There's this whole scheme of we want people to see us in this light. Whenever I talk to someone who writes a book on motivational shit, and I just look at them like, you're in an office chair, you got a glass window behind you that's off a skylit view, and I'm like, but what's the rest of your fucking house look like? I bet you everything off camera is like toys all over the floor, fucking stains, you're wearing just like
Yeah.
no pants, fucking nice shirt, that's it. Like, it's nobody ever wants to show that side. You'll see episodes of me where I have fucking bags under my eyes. It's fucking 1 a.m. my time. I'm doing a pod. I don't give a fuck about these things. And it's
Yeah.
taken me forever to get here. But I love talking to people like yourself that are inspired by something. And next thing you know, I bet you in a million years, or I bet you all the money in the world, you did not think this conversation was going to go as it went today, where we've almost been
No.
talking for 2 hours. That's what
Wow.
I'm
Has it
saying.
really? Wow.
It fucking goes by when you just take the time to be in there. I put my phone
Yeah.
off, I put it down, and I just literally legit want to pick your brain. And you can pick mine. Let's fucking take this magical fairy ride together. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, no, dude, and that was one of the things because I'm pretty new to the podcasting world. I think we've made a dozen episodes and released close to 10 or something like that. But so yeah, so I'm just starting, and then when you reached out, I went back and I listened to your show, and I was like, I was actually telling my wife, I was like, dude, like I really dig the way this guy approaches his stuff because like I think that so often, we're like, oh, well, it has to be, like you say, we have to be a show about this because, and I do think that to your point earlier, ultimately, a lot of it is financially motivated, where it's like, oh, well, we need to have this person on because this is what our audience likes. And, we need to go venture into this topic and make sure that we say this, this, and that, because that's what these people want to hear, and it's like, I mean, I appreciate calculated strategy as it relates to business, just as much as anyone, dude. Like, you can't just, willy nilly just, do stuff and hope. You got to have at least some sort of strategy. But at the same time, like, there becomes a point where everything becomes overly calculated and then it becomes cynical, it becomes clinical, it removes the humanity, and I think that's the thing. I think that, whether, because I mean, dude, you have what, everyone from like nuclear scientists to freaking writers and gamers and everywhere in between, dude. And it's like the only commonality between your guests is like we're humans, and that's awesome. Like I love that. And because for me, it's like so much of what I see in life, there's so much crossover, dude. You know what I mean? Where it's like you look at the way that like an engine works and the way that the pistons work, and then you can totally carry that analogy over to like running a basketball team efficiently, right? And it's like because you have this working in concert with this, right? And it's like, oh, I learned, I read a silly book about science fiction, and then it introduced this philosophy concept, and then next thing I know, like I'm studying Camus, right? And none of that would have happened if I didn't happen that I was into aliens and watched this random movie that I didn't even know existed that introduced this concept that planted this seed. And so like I think that one of the great things about a show like yours that has so many different people on is, especially in such a hyper specialized society, where being a jack of all trades, a general practitioner is kind of a dirty word because there's so many people out there where it's like, look, I don't need one person that knows 12 things because I can just go get 12 experts on that one specific thing, right? Whereas to me, it's like I'm the opposite, dude. Like I like people that have their hands in a bunch of different pots, and maybe they're a little artistic over here, they're a little scientific over here, they're a little mathematic over here, and because it just really goes to show you, like you start to distill things down to their base essences and see how connected everything is. I mean, just the same way that, like, I mean, even just understanding that an engine conceptually is a singular entity that is comprised of multiple components that work in concert with one another at a specific time and rhythm and in such a fashion influenced by this fuselage and everything like that, right? And then again, you say that's exactly how a company works, or that's how a house is built, right? A house is a foundation, and then we've got this wood, and then we've got the drywall, but you have to know what you're doing with both things. And with the company, it's like, okay, yeah, we have a marketing department and a sales department and a production department and a logistics department, and each of them work independently, but they have to work within one another because each thing feeds off the other and is required on that to perform its basic and essential functions. So like, you really just ultimately I'm one of those people like absolutely everything is connected to how many degrees I can't tell you, and it depends on the circumstance. And when you really get a chance to talk to some interesting people and dynamic people like that, I think that it just really demonstrates that concept.
I got my degree in one thing:
That
pseudo conversation. Have you ever
right.
looked up the list of degrees? There's like 100 for each subcategory that leads down into a different subcategory. There's like 50 degrees on philosophy that all hit on different areas where you're judging technology based on sociological functions, or you're basing conversation, social media, and all these different things. I'm like, everything is such a niche fucking category in a group. And if you're not about it, then like, who the fuck is listening to a podcast about the train? About just the train, the US 52 that runs B36 down line AZ. Where's that motherfucker at?
Right.
Everyone's got to pick, like, I'm gonna do this or do this or do this. And I'm like, fuck, like, it's so easy that we all have one thing that correlates us and makes us all the fucking same, and that's that we live and breathe and we're people. We're people. Yeah. And it gets lost in translation so much, man. It's what I really enjoy about like just understanding and talking to so many people. I definitely have aged beyond my years, but it's fun as fuck, man. I definitely, there are times I'm like, shit, I'm old. I feel old as hell. But you also got to look at like what the world is kind of turning into. We all have the same base thoughts. I can tell you that from the 600 something people I've talked to, and not even, I've probably talked to 700 something people, but I haven't released episodes, or I've deleted episodes based on, people change their minds sometimes, which sucks. But at the same time, it's like, I understand sometimes someone might dive into deep, and someone called me Howard Stern one time. And that's the biggest fucking insult to me, because that dude in my eyes is an asshole, because he dives into the media shit, the shit you want to see on TMZ, the stuff where people don't want to talk about that stuff. But then you're on air, so you kind of have to find a way to navigate through it, and it's like the safest way possible. It's like, I don't want to hurt anybody. I just want to fucking see this shit roll, dude. Next thing you know, we're thinking about movie ideas. I mean, you were talking earlier, I kept thinking about cutting the grass. I was like, imagine the blades of like, you ever see the movie The Happening, where the dude's stuck under the fucking lawnmower? Like,
Happening? No.
God, dude, you got to see that shit.
I don't know. I can't even, I feel like it's there, but I can't think of it.
Mark Wahlberg, where the plants were killing people.
Oh, got it. Yeah. I no, dude. Oh, no, that's the movie. That movie got like a crap ton of shit when it came out.
Yeah, it's so good though.
That's your boy Shyamalan.
It's so good. It's so good. It's so good. The Mist is his movie too.
I'm gonna be upfront with it. I haven't seen it. I don't talk shit about movies that I haven't seen, because I like. But yeah, no, I like. It wasn't just that. It was, people were like aggressively upset.
No, they wanted to kill M. Night Shyamalan.
Pitchforks down the middle of Main Street type shit.
M. Night Shyamalan messaged me and said he didn't. M. Night Shyamalan, I reached out to him. He was like, sorry, I don't do interviews anymore. And I'm like, I realize that now, because I researched a bunch of articles about him. People legit were trying to kill him because of the movies he's created. I'm like, why do you hate something that bad? You're going to hurt the director. It doesn't make sense to me.
I guess, and the funny thing is, it's ultimately because they loved something else he did first. And that's what's so funny. Like, he doesn't get that response if he doesn't make The Sixth Sense and it doesn't come out as universally beloved as it is. Because again, going back to what we talked about earlier, it's when people's expectations aren't met that they get extremely upset. I was so livid at the state of Cyberpunk on PS4 because they had raised those expectations. They showed all the gameplay footage, and they literally came out 2 weeks before it was released and said, it plays great on PlayStation 4, therefore setting an expectation in me. Had they said, you know what, Jason, I'm going to level with you, it runs like shit, I would wait until you have a PS5. I'd be like, cool, I'll adjust my expectations accordingly. I'll still have it on my list. I'll check it out, but I need to wait until I have a PS5. In the meantime, I'll do this. Look forward to playing your game when I have the type of system that'll run it effectively, right? But you didn't. You set an expectation because you wanted my money, and then you delivered me a shit product that didn't match the expectation. Now I'm pissed.
With as much as I hate Tom Holland, what you just explained about what you're going through with Cyberpunk is what happened when I found out that they were switching the Spider-Man look to look more like Tom Holland. And my buddy sent a picture to me, and I'm like, what am I looking at? And he goes, bro, it's you in a video game. And I was like, what? And I look, and the actual CGI does represent a lot of my face. And it's funny because you know how people do those face swaps where they can put your face on like a favorite movie scene or something? He put my face on Spider-Man when the dude's taking his fucking hood off and it looks just like me. And I was like, I was like, dude, I was like, why are you sending me a picture of Tom Holland? He goes, bro, I face swapped you with him and that's you. And I'm like, no, it's not. There's one distinct difference that can really point off. And I sent it to my mom too. And my mom was like, that's not you. I'm like, it is me. Because there's one distinct difference. My nostril on one of my noses, on one side of my nose, is slightly closed.
Okay.
From an accident I had when I was a little kid. So I looked at that video again. I'm like, dude, you just sent me Tom Holland. Nope. He pulls off the mask. The nostrils closed on one side. And I sent it to someone in my family, my mom. And she's like, no, I know my own kid. And I was like, look at it again. And now look at my face. And remember, I have my nostril issue. And she goes, oh my God. And I'm like, yeah, you don't even know your own kid.
That's so funny, dude. Yeah, those face swap things are crazy, man. I don't trust them ever just because like the first one or whatever it came out that it was just like Russian software and like that like by using it you basically gave them likeness to you or gave them approval to use your likeness for any purpose whatsoever ad nauseum like in perpetuity throughout the universe. And so I was like, screw that, dude.
It's cool when they can make like an actor in a movie younger than they are, like make them
the
like
digital de-aging thing is something completely different. That's like an artistic skill.
That's fucking amazing.
Different. Yeah, that's crazy.
Robert De Niro and Sylvester Stallone in The Match or whatever it was. I was like, yo, that is beautiful.
Yeah, dude. I still haven't seen The Irishman either, man. I gotta see it, dude. It's just every time I see that 3.5 hour runtime, I'm like, man.
Is that Christopher Walken in that?
No, so that's again De Niro and it's Joe Pesci came out of retirement. It's the most recent Martin Scorsese movie.
I haven't seen a lot of new stuff. I just actually hooked onto Hulu like a month ago, so I've been binging the shit out of Rick and Morty.
As you should, dude. I love that show.
So a good recommendation I have for you is The Orville with Seth MacFarlane.
Oh, dude, yeah, I'm familiar. I never went back and checked it out. It was kind of one of those shows where I was waiting for someone to like tell me whether it was worth checking out or not. So that's cool. Yeah, I really like Seth MacFarlane, and I really like sci-fi, comedy drama.
It's like a Family Guy version of Star Trek, but it actually has a little bit more deeper meaning, I would say, on the concept of like a lot of it has an overall message that correlates to how the world's going today.
Interesting. Yeah, I would. That's totally something that I would check out. Yeah, dude, there's so much good stuff, dude. Like the one thing I'll tell you to check out if you haven't. Have you seen Legion? You watched Legion?
The movie Legion?
No, the show Legion.
No, I
haven't. It's an FX show. Okay, so dude, it's like tangentially related to like the X-Men universe, but it is not an X-Men movie at all. It is a total head trip mind fuck by this guy Noah Hawley, who also made the Fargo series on FX, which is really amazing. And it's like the single most creative show that I've ever seen. It's the most well shot. It's like it's got awesome acting. I'm just going to it goes so many places. I don't want to spoil anything, but needless to say, there's a lot of like psychic projection stuff and jumping in and out of minds and it's just a fantastic show. So it's called Legion. There's 3 seasons. It only lasted 3 seasons, unfortunately. That one's on FX. Check that one out, and then I'll check out The Orville.
Yes, and then The Men Who Stare at Goats is a good one too.
I saw that movie in theaters. I thought it was okay.
It's based on a real government project.
I know, and I love I think the Coen brothers did it, right, or something similar.
No, my mom went to that high school where they kept the goats nearby, so I was like,
really?
I found that out 10 years after watching it. So I was like, dude, that just made that movie fucking solidified as amazing in my head.
That's cool. Yeah, it's one of those ones that you don't really remember seeing it. You kind of just remember your response to it.
Speed
Racer. I remember thinking it was okay, but I don't really remember anything about it too much.
It's like Speed Racer for me was that. Like I only remember the monkey in the trunk and how did the monkey get there.
I don't even remember that much, dude. That one was a trip as well, dude. I just remember a lot of like neon colors. That's really the only thing I remember about that movie. Neon colors and what's his nuts face, the main dude.
I don't know.
Emil Hirsch.
I didn't even know that guy's name.
He was big for like a 5 spot, about 5 years or so. But
It's like when you
he
find
did
out
he did
that,
John Carter of Mars, and then his career went to shit.
oh, he is really good in
Yeah,
that
yeah,
one.
yeah. Yeah, no, I thought that was a good movie too. I don't know why that one got a bunch of shit. I thought that was, I mean, it wasn't the best thing ever, but it's a cool flick.
Have you noticed that some actors look exactly alike? Like Will
Yes.
Smith, oh, not Will Smith, Will Ferrell looks like Chad Smith from Red Hot Chili Peppers.
100%. Yeah.
And then what's his name? Jeff Bridges looks like it's that dude who plays in Hateful Eight.
Kurt Russell?
Kurt Russell, yeah.
I saw the first one for sure. I mean, they're both white dudes, but I mean, first of all, I love both of those. Jeff Bridges and Kurt Russell are like two of like
They look
actors
so much
I'll watch in
alike.
anything. I don't see it, dude. I don't see it.
All right. Well, look, Jason, you've given me enough of your time, man. Please promote the podcast, tell people where they can find you at, and I'll make sure I link it in the description as well, man.
Excellent, dude. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, bro. I had a great convo. So yeah, for anybody listening, if you're into movies, do please check out my podcast I do with my buddy Ryan Siebold. That's called Esoterica Cinema. You can follow us on Twitter. You can hit us up, esotericacinema@gmail.com. And the other thing that I would like to say too is that we didn't really go into it here, but as I mentioned, I do have the publishing company Aberrant Literature. I released my first novel this year.
Congratulations.
To everything else. Thanks, man. Yeah,
is it a bestseller?
Not at all, bro. I have two ratings on Amazon right now, both 5 stars. One of them I'm sure is my mom. The other I'm sure is my friend. Right. So, but it's called Preconscious by Jason Peters, who is me. It is available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, elsewhere, and it's kind of it's an interesting. So I'll give you the quick version, which is it's basically about this guy who wakes up in a random apartment. It's kind of the amnesia setup, but it doesn't end up being cliched, right? So guy wakes up in a room, doesn't recognize it, doesn't know where he is, finds himself in a random apartment complex, ends up finding the manager of the estate, and he basically reveals to him that he's actually woken up in this sort of vortex of sorts where the apartments are actually portals to different worlds and different times and places, and that by going through them, he will inhabit a different body and have an experience that will teach him something about who the real is, so that by who the real him is, so that by the end of it, he comes to know who he is and why.
You've been watching way too much Rick and Morty, dog.
I'm telling you, dude, I love like all this multiverse shit and different dimensions and portals. Like that's my shit, bro. I get into that. So Preconscious, Jason Peters, available on Amazon. Esoterica Cinema, myself and my co-host Ryan Siebold. That's on all, Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to. And then the other 2 books that I'll tell you about is just, again, Whiteout by Ashton McCulley, super fun, adventure, sarcastic Indiana Jones romp. And then my other good friend, M.T. Roberts, has his first book coming out that's called The Ghost in the Grass. And it's basically, imagine like a ghost story set in the 1800s in Africa during the Boer War. And it's basically like a horror book for smart people. So if you like pulpy shit, but you have an advanced vocabulary, yeah, we're gonna sell like 3 copies of this book, but those 3 people are gonna love this book. So anybody that's listening, if any of those appeal to you, please check them out. We appreciate it. We love the support. And again, man, dude, just had a great time here. So thanks for giving me the time to do the plugs. Thanks for talking with me. Really appreciated the wide-ranging conversation, dude. Can't wait to listen to it.
Thanks for giving me the time, and thank you for listening to this episode of Out of the Blank podcast.